In 1453, the last great city of the Roman world stood alone behind ancient walls. The empire behind Constantinople had faded, but the city still carried the memory of Rome. For more than 1,000 years, these walls had stopped armies. Before the final siege, the Ottomans tightened the sea road around the city. Isolation became the first weapon of the siege. The Ottoman army did not arrive as a mob. It arrived as a system. Inside the city, every tower and gate became a question of survival. The Ottoman plan was simple in purpose, but complex in execution. Surround, pressure, and break. A new weapon was being prepared for an ancient wall. The cannon moved slowly, but its meaning arrived before it fired. The defenders protected the Golden Horn with iron. Help arrived from the sea, but not enough to change the balance. The defenders were brave, but the walls were long and their numbers were few. The siege began with organization, not chaos. The first bombardment told the city that the old world had changed. Even far from the walls, the people felt every strike. By night, the city fought back with stone, timber, and exhausted hands. The Ottomans moved closer day by day, turning earth itself into a weapon. The defenders used every advantage the walls still gave them. As the siege tightened, food became fear, measured by handfuls. The siege was a contest of endurance, engineering, and will. At night, the Ottoman camp looked like another city surrounding the first. The siege found a rhythm: fire by day, repair by night. Inside the city, faith became a shield for people who had little else left. Foreign defenders stood beside Byzantines, knowing the city's fate could become their own. The Ottomans tried not only to break the walls, but to go beneath them. Below the city, another battle was fought in darkness and whispers. The battle underground was fought with smoke, sound, and fear. For a time, the harbor remained protected by iron. Then came one of the siege's most shocking ideas. The defenders woke to find Ottoman ships where they thought no ships could be. The Golden Horn was no longer safe, and the city felt the circle tighten. The city now had to defend itself on another front. The defenders waited for help that never came in time. Hunger became part of the siege, as real as stone and cannon fire. Each day, the walls became less like stone and more like memory. Leadership became a refusal to abandon the wall. Outside the city, discipline turned patience into pressure. The city was not only defended by soldiers, it was endured by families. The final assault would begin with prepared thunder. The harbor no longer felt like protection. It felt like another wound. No one could promise survival, but everyone understood duty. Before dawn, silence became heavier than noise. The final assault began in waves. The defenders fought from stone, timber, and exhaustion. The pressure did not come once. It returned again and again.
At the breach, every step mattered. In the final hour, rumor moved faster than command.
Then the defenders saw the sign they feared most. The news reached the streets. The walls had opened. The last ruler of the city stepped from history into legend. The city that had resisted for centuries was now open. Many fled to sacred places, hoping stone and prayer might still protect them. The Ottoman commander entered not only a city, but the capital of a vanished world. The conquest was real, but so was the silence that followed it. The walls still stood in places, but the world they protected was gone. A conquest had ended one empire and opened the work of building another capital. News of the fall traveled west like a warning. Chroniclers understood that something ancient had ended. The city would live again, but under a new empire and a new name in history. The Roman story did not end in one moment, but in 1453, its last city fell. The siege proved that gunpowder could humble even the strongest walls. The fall was not caused by one weapon alone, but by pressure from every direction. History remembers empires, but sieges are lived by people. When the noise faded, the stones remained as witnesses. For the Ottomans, Constantinople was not the end of a story, but the beginning of imperial destiny. For Europe, the fall raised a terrifying question. Where would Ottoman power move next? The fall scattered people, books, and memories across the Mediterranean world. The water that once protected the city now served a new empire. The city's sacred spaces became part of a new political and religious order. After 1453, every neighboring ruler watched the East more carefully. The fall reshaped more than politics. It changed routes, trade, and fear. Across Europe, rulers studied how cannon had changed the meaning of defense. The age of walls was not over, but the age of cannon had begun. The city carried many names, but its memory reached back to Rome. With Constantinople taken, Ottoman ambition had a new center. For Christian Europe, the fall became a warning and a wound. Empires changed, but ordinary people still had to live the next morning. The fall of the city changed the imagination of the sea. The walls had not failed from weakness alone. They faced a world transformed. After 1453, the balance between Europe, Asia, and the Mediterranean began to shift. Constantinople fell, Rome's last city vanished, and history crossed into a new age. And the echoes of 1453 would continue long after the smoke cleared. To understand why the fall mattered, we must understand how strong the city had been. The city was not protected by one wall, but by a system of stone. The walls had been built for older wars. The cannons belonged to a new one. Control of water decided whether the city could breathe. The Golden Horn chain turned the harbor into a locked gate. Dragging ships over land broke the defenders' a sense of safety. Every new front made the small defense thinner. Sieges are measured not only at attacks, but in days of waiting. The city lived inside a storm of sound: bells, hammers, oars, prayers, and thunder. The final night was not only military, it was spiritual, human, and unforgettable. The fall of a city can begin with confusion in a narrow passage. Outside, the attack moved in waves. Inside, the defense struggled to stay connected. A single weak point mattered, because the defenders had too few men to seal every danger.
In battle, fear can move faster than orders.
The story can be told without showing cruelty, because the silence already speaks.
The year 1453 became a symbol because many histories met in one city. Even after conquest, the memory of Rome did not disappear. The city became a center from which a rising empire could look in every direction. Conquest ended one order, but trade and daily life slowly returned. Some of the city's knowledge traveled with those who left. Across Europe, the fall felt like a warning carried by parchment. After Constantinople, fortification had to answer gunpowder. The lesson of the siege spread through metal, smoke, and fear. The fall of Constantinople sits between the medieval and the early modern world. With the city taken, Ottoman power had a new horizon. Neighboring lands understood that the map had changed. The sea became a place of opportunity and fear. History changed overnight, but ordinary people still had to begin the next day. Was 1453 an ending, or the beginning of another age? The city changed rulers, languages, and symbols, but its importance survived. The siege proved that walls could still matter, but only if they changed. The harbor changed from shield to vulnerability. The siege succeeded not only by courage, but by logistics. The civilians endured the siege without choosing the war. The defenders could not save the city, but their resistance shaped its memory. The Ottoman victory came from pressure applied everywhere at once. This was not a story of monsters and heroes alone. It was a human catastrophe and a political transformation. The Byzantine Empire ended, but its memory entered the world beyond its walls. For the Ottomans, the conquered city became a foundation for imperial future. Ideas survived because people carried them. The city's stones became both ruin and record. The fall created a fear that traveled faster than armies. The map did not simply change color. It changed direction. War after 1453 would increasingly belong to those who understood both stone and fire. The city survived by becoming something new. The human echo of the siege lasted longer than the smoke. Constantinople was the last Roman city, and also the first city of a new age.
The fall still matters because it connected war, trade, faith, memory, and power.
The siege can be remembered through a wall, a cannon, a chail, a ship, and a candle. Victory and loss lived in the same streets. The fall ended one story and began many others.
All roads in this story return to the walls.
All roads in this story also return to the water. In the end, history is carried by people. After 1453, the world did not stop. It turned. The fall of Constantinople was not only the end of an empire, it was the beginning of a new world. Constantinople fell, Rome's last city vanished, and history crossed into a new age.